The Galactic Threat. The vast chamber of the Galactic Council hummed with tension. Representatives from 1,000 worlds shifted uneasily in their seats, their varied forms a testament to the diversity of life in the universe. At the center of the room, a holographic display flickered, showing the steady advance of a terrifying force that had already consumed dozens of worlds. High Counselor Zixna, a being of shimmering energy contained within a crystalline form, addressed the assembly. Esteemed colleagues, the situation has become dire. The Vorax swarm continues to expand, consuming all in its path. Our combined fleets have failed to halt their advance. Murmurs of despair rippled through the gathering. The Vorax, a hive mind species of insectoid creatures, had appeared at the edge of known space 2 galactic standard years ago. Since then, they had cut a swath of destruction across the stars, their appetite for resources insatiable. What of the Crix? Called out a voice from the assembled representatives. Surely their battle fleets can stand against this threat. Zixna's crystalline form dimmed slightly. The Crix home system fell 3 cycles ago. Their fleets were numerous, but the Vorax adapted quickly to their tactics. We've received no communications from Crix space since. A collective gasp echoed through the chamber. The Crix had been considered one of the most militarily powerful species in the galaxy. If they had fallen, what hope remained? As panic began to set in, a quiet voice spoke up from the back of the chamber. Perhaps we could help. All eyes turned to the speaker, a bipedal creature with pink skin and a tuft of fur atop its head. Many of the council members had to access their neural interfaces to identify the species, human, from the planet Earth, one of the newest additions to the Galactic Council. Zixna's form brightened slightly with curiosity. You are Alexandra Mason, the representative from Earth, correct? What could your species offer that the combined might of the galaxy has not? Alexandra stood, her posture straight and confident despite the skeptical looks from the other representatives. We may be new to interstellar travel, but humanity has a long history of warfare and adaptation. We've faced extinction-level events on our world multiple times and survived. We've fought wars against ourselves that nearly destroyed our planet, yet we endured and learned from each conflict. She paused, looking around the room. More importantly, we understand what it means to be the underdog, to face a superior force, and find a way to prevail. It's encoded in our history, our mythology, our very DNA. A Vulcaran representative, a being of living metal, spoke up. Your species has barely mastered faster-than-light travel. What weapons could you possibly bring to bear against the Vorax that we have not already tried? Alexandra smiled. It's not about the weapons, but how we use them. Humanity excels at asymmetric warfare, at finding unconventional solutions to seemingly insurmountable problems. We don't just adapt, we innovate. She walked to the center of the chamber, standing next to the holographic display of the advancing Vorax swarm. Moreover, we have something that I believe may be unique among the species here, a cultural fascination with the very concept of alien invasions. For centuries, we've imagined scenarios like this, created countless stories and simulations. In a way, we've been preparing for this moment since before we knew the galaxy existed. The chamber fell silent as the council members considered her words. Zixna spoke again, curiosity evident in the fluctuations of their crystalline form. What exactly are you proposing, Representative Mason? Give us access to your technology, your shipyards. Let us study the Vorax, their tactics, their biology. In return, we'll show you how humanity fights when its back is against the wall. Alexandra's eyes gleamed with determination. We may be newcomers to the galactic stage, but we're quick learners. And when it comes to survival, there's no species more tenacious than humans. Murmurs broke out across the chamber. Some voices were skeptical, others hopeful. Zixna raised an appendage for silence. This is unprecedented, the High Counselor said. Never has such a responsibility been given to a species so new to the Council. Yet, these are unprecedented times. They paused, their crystalline form pulsing with internal deliberation. Very well, Representative Mason. The Council will grant your request. You will have access to our resources. But know this, the fate of the galaxy may rest on your species' shoulders. Can humanity bear this burden? Alexandra's expression was grim but determined. We've carried the weight of our own world for millennia. We're ready to bear the weight of the galaxy. As the council session adjourned, representatives from various worlds approached Alexandra, some offering support, others expressing skepticism. But as she left the chamber, her mind was already racing with plans. Humanity had always thrived when faced with challenges, and this was the greatest challenge they had ever encountered. Back on Earth, preparations began immediately. The brightest minds from every field were brought together, working tirelessly to understand the alien technology provided by the Council and to develop strategies against the Vorac's threat. Dr. Ilara Patel, a xenobiologist, pored over the limited data available on Vorac's physiology. Their hive mind is both their greatest strength and potentially their greatest weakness. She mused, her eyes never leaving the holographic models floating before her. If we can disrupt their communication, we might be able to throw their entire swarm into chaos. In another lab, weapons specialist Chen Wei worked on adapting human military technology to space warfare. Our problem isn't firepower, he explained to a group of engineers. It's targeting and delivery. We need to think beyond traditional projectiles and energy weapons. The Vorac's adapt too quickly to those. Meanwhile, in orbital shipyards, construction began on humanity's first true war fleet. The ships were unlike anything the Galactic Council had seen before, a fusion of alien technology and human ingenuity. They were smaller, faster, and more maneuverable than the lumbering battleships of other species. Fleet Admiral Ivano Koro stood on the bridge of the flagship, christened the HSS Resilience. Her dark eyes scanned the assembled fleet, a mix of pride and apprehension on her face. "We're as ready as we'll ever be," she said to her XO. "Let's hope it's enough." As the human fleet prepared to depart for their first engagement with the Vorac's, a message was broadcast across Earth and to all human colonies. It was short, but it captured the spirit of humanity as they faced this existential threat. For centuries, we looked to the stars and wondered if we were alone. Now we know we're not, and we've been called upon to defend not just our world, but all worlds. This is humanity's greatest challenge, but challenge is what we do best. We go forward now, not just as humans, but as defenders of life itself. Whatever happens, know this, humanity will give everything we have, everything we are, to ensure there's a galaxy left to come home to. As the fleet jumped to faster-than-light speed, humanity held its breath. The greatest test in human history had begun, and the galaxy watched, wondering if this young, audacious species could achieve the impossible. Little did the Vorac's know, they were about to face an enemy unlike any they had encountered before. Humanity was entering the fray, and the galaxy was about to learn why you should never underestimate the species that had thrived on one of the most challenging planets in the known universe. The hunt was on, and for once, humans were the predators, not the prey. Humanity's response. The announcement of Earth's commitment to defend the galaxy against the Vorac's threat sent shockwaves through human society. For the first time in history, the entire planet united under a single cause. Nations that had once been bitter enemies now worked side by side, pooling resources and expertise. At the heart of this global effort was the newly formed Terran Defense Initiative, TDI, headquartered in a sprawling complex beneath the Rocky Mountains. Here, the best and brightest from every corner of the globe worked tirelessly to prepare humanity for its greatest challenge. Dr. Ilara Patel stood before a holographic display of a Vorac's drone, its insectoid features rendered in unsettling detail. Their biology is fascinating, she explained to the assembled team of scientists and military personnel. The Vorac's operate on a hive mind principle, but it's far more advanced than anything we've seen in Earth's insect species. She manipulated the display, zooming in on the creature's neural structure. Each drone is capable of independent action, but they're all connected to a central intelligence. This allows for incredibly coordinated attacks, but it might also be their Achilles heel. General Marcus Donovan, a grizzled veteran with cybernetic implants replacing his left eye and arm, leaned forward. "How so, Doctor?" Ilara's eyes lit up with excitement. "If we can disrupt their communication network, we might be able to throw their entire swarm into disarray. It's like severing the connection between a body and its limbs." Chen Wei, the weapons specialist, chimed in from his workstation. "We've been working on something that might help with that. We're calling it the Babel Protocol." He brought up a schematic on the main screen. It's a multi-spectrum jamming device, but with a twist. Instead of just blocking communications, it floods the Vorax network with nonsense data. Imagine trying to have a conversation while 1,000 people are shouting gibberish in your ears. General Donovan nodded approvingly. "Good work. How soon can we have a prototype?" "We're running final tests now," Chen replied. "Should be ready for field deployment within the week." As the meeting continued, Fleet Admiral Ivan Okoro was in low Earth orbit, overseeing the final preparations of humanity's first interstellar war fleet. The HSS Resilience, her flagship, was a marvel of human engineering and alien technology. Unlike the bulky capital ships favored by most Galactic Council species, the Resilience was sleek and agile, designed for hit-and-run tactics. "Status report," Okoro barked as she strode onto the bridge. Her XO, Commander Raj Sharma, immediately responded. "All systems are green, Admiral. The fleet is at 98% readiness. We're just waiting on the final shipment of Babel devices from Earth." Okoro nodded, her eyes scanning the tactical display. The human fleet was small compared to the armadas of more established spacefaring races, but each ship was a testament to human ingenuity. Alongside conventional weapons, they carried a host of experimental systems designed specifically to combat the Vorax threat. "And our pilots?" Okoro asked. Eager for action, Sharma replied with a slight smile. "The simulator data shows they're outperforming every benchmark we set. Turns out all those video games were good for something after all." Okoro allowed herself a small chuckle. It was a running joke among the fleet that humanity's long history of science fiction and space combat games had inadvertently prepared them for this moment. Back on Earth, in a secure bunker beneath Geneva, Alexandra Mason was in a heated discussion with the leaders of Earth's nations. "We need to be prepared for the possibility that this war might come to Earth," she argued. "The Galactic Council is providing us with shield technology, but we need a planetary defense system to back it up." The Chinese premier leaned forward. "My country has already begun converting our anti-satellite weapons for this purpose. We stand ready to defend not just China, but the entire Earth." Similar commitments came from other world leaders. For the first time in human history, the threat of alien invasion had accomplished what countless diplomats and peace treaties had failed to do. It had united humanity. As the meeting concluded, Alexandra's comm unit buzzed. It was a message from Dr. Patil. "Breakthrough in Vorax biology. Need to see you immediately." Within the hour, Alexandra was back at TDI headquarters. Dr. Patel's lab was a whirlwind of activity, with holographic displays showing various aspects of Vorax physiology. "We've cracked it," Ilara said without preamble as Alexandra entered. "The key to the Vorax's rapid adaptation isn't just their hive mind. It's in their very DNA." She brought up a complex molecular structure. "Their genetic code is like nothing we've ever seen. It's designed to rewrite itself in response to environmental pressures. That's how they adapt so quickly to new weapons and tactics." Alexandra's eyes widened as she grasped the implications. "So how do we fight an enemy that can evolve on the fly?" Ilara's grin was almost predatory. "By using their strength against them. We're developing a virus, a genetic disruptor. It won't kill them directly, but it'll throw their adaptive processes into chaos. They'll start evolving randomly, uncontrollably. Is it ready? Alexander asked. Not yet, Ilara admitted. We need more data, ideally from live specimens. But once we perfect it, this could be the key to winning the war. As they discussed the potential of this new weapon, alarms suddenly blared throughout the complex. General Donovan's voice came over the intercom. All personnel to battle stations. We've just received word. The Voraks have entered the solar system. The news spread like wildfire. Humanity's first real test was coming sooner than anyone had anticipated. In orbit, Admiral Okoro rallied her fleet. Men and women of the Terran Defense Fleet. Her voice rang out across all ships. The moment we've prepared for is here. The enemy is at our doorstep, but they don't know what they're in for. We are humanity. We've survived ice ages, plagues, and our own destructive nature. We dreamed of this day for centuries, and now we will show the galaxy what we're made of. She paused, letting her words sink in. Every human who ever lived, every ancestor who struggled and survived so that we could be here today. They're with us now. We fight not just for our own survival, but for the survival of all sentient life in the galaxy. Now let's show these bugs why you should never corner a species that turned itself into the apex predator of its own world. A cheer went up across the fleet. On Earth, in cities and towns across the globe, humans looked to the sky with a mixture of fear and determination. The greatest fight in human history was about to begin, and humanity was ready. As the Vorax ships appeared at the edge of the solar system, humanity stood united, prepared to fight with every ounce of courage, cunning, and sheer stubborn determination that had defined their species since the dawn of time. The galaxy was about to learn why humans were not to be underestimated. First contact and initial battles. The void of space erupted into chaos as the Vorax swarm entered the solar system. Their ships, organic-looking constructs that pulse with an eerie bioluminescence, moved with a singular purpose towards Earth. But humanity's defenders were ready. Admiral Ivan Okoro stood on the bridge of the HSS Resilience, her face a mask of determination. All ships, assume attack formation Delta. Prepare to deploy Babel devices on my mark. The human fleet moved with a precision that belied their inexperience in space combat. Smaller, more agile ships darted between the lumbering Vorax vessels, their unconventional designs confusing the swarm's targeting systems. Babel devices active, reported Commander Sharma. Commencing electronic warfare. Across the battlefield, the Vorax ships suddenly faltered. Their coordinated movements became erratic as the Babel devices flooded their hive mind with conflicting information. Now's our chance, Okoro ordered. All ships, engage at will. Let's show these bugs what happens when they mess with humanity. The human fleet sprung into action. Vessels that the Vorax had dismissed as too small to be a threat suddenly revealed their true nature. Modular weapon systems unfolded, unleashing a barrage of firepower that the Vorax had never encountered before. On the lead Vorax ship, the Hive commander struggled to make sense of the situation. Its multifaceted eyes darted from one display to another, trying to comprehend the tactics of these strange new enemies. Adaptation failing, it chittered to its subordinates. These creatures, they do not fight like the others. Indeed, the human ships moved in patterns that seemed chaotic at first glance, but revealed a deeper strategy. They used the debris of destroyed Vorax ships as cover, lured larger vessels into the path of friendly fire, and employed hit-and-run tactics that left the swarm reeling. Back on Earth, in the TDI command center, General Donovan watched the battle unfold with a mix of pride and concern. They're holding their own, he muttered, but the Vorax numbers are still overwhelming. Dr. Ilara Patel burst into the room, her eyes wild with excitement. General, we've done it. The genetic disruptor is ready for deployment. Donovan's cybernetic eye whirred as he focused on her. Are you certain it will work? As certain as we can be without field testing, Ilara replied. But we need to get it to the fleet immediately. The general nodded grimly. I'll inform Admiral Okoro. Prep a fast transport for launch. In space, the battle raged on. Human ingenuity was keeping the Vorax at bay, but the aliens' ability to adapt was starting to show. They were learning, evolving their tactics to counter the humans' unorthodox strategies. "Admiral," Sharma called out, his voice tense. "The Vorax are adapting to the Babel devices. Effectiveness is dropping." Okoro gritted her teeth, switched to frequency pattern gamma. "We need to buy more time." As the human fleet adjusted their electronic warfare tactics, a small, sleek transport ship slipped away from Earth, carrying precious cargo that could turn the tide of the battle. On the Vorax command ship, the Hive commander was beginning to understand the threat these humans posed. "These creatures," it communicated to the swarm, "they are not like the others. They think individually, unpredictably. We must not underestimate them." The realization spread through the Vorax hive mind. For the first time in their long history of conquest, they faced an enemy that didn't behave according to logical patterns, an enemy that seemed to thrive in chaos. As the battle entered its third hour, both sides had taken heavy losses. The space around Earth was littered with the debris of destroyed ships, both human and Vorax. But humanity's defenders fought on with a tenacity that surprised even themselves. In the thick of the fighting, a young pilot named Maya Chen maneuvered her fighter with skills honed by years of flight simulators and VR games. "Squad on me," she called out to her wingmates. "We're going to try something crazy." Her squadron fell into formation behind her as she led them towards a massive Vorax carrier. They weaved through a hail of bioplasma fire, using the carrier's own escort ships as shields. "Now," Maya shouted as they reached the carrier's hull. Her squadron unleashed a barrage of missiles, not at the carrier itself, but at specific points around it. The explosions created a debris field that confused the carrier's defenses long enough for Maya to deliver the killing blow, an experimental plasma torpedo that burrowed deep into the ship before detonating. The Vorax carrier exploded spectacularly, taking out several smaller ships around it. A cheer went up across the human communications channels. Admiral Okoro allowed herself a small smile. "Well done, Phantom Squadron. But stay focused. This battle is far from over." Just then, a transmission came through from Earth. It was General Donovan. "Admiral, we're sending up a transport with a new weapon. Top priority. It must reach you at all costs." Okoro nodded grimly. "Understood, General. We'll clear a path." She turned to her tactical officer. "Redirect our forces. I want a clear corridor for that transport." As the human fleet adjusted its formation, the Vorax sensed an opportunity. They began to press their attack, focusing their forces on what they perceived as a weakness in the human lines. But it was a trap. As the Vorax ships clustered together to strike, the humans unleashed a new weapon, gravitational mines that created localized areas of intense gravity, crushing Vorax ships together and ripping others apart. In the confusion, the transport from Earth slipped through, docking with the resilience amidst a hail of covering fire. Dr. Patel herself emerged from the transport, carrying the secure container. "Admiral Okoro," she said, slightly out of breath, "I present to you humanity's best hope, the genetic disruptor." Okoro eyed the container. "How do we deploy it?" "It's a virus," Ilara explained quickly. "We need to introduce it into their biological ships. Even a small amount should spread quickly through their interconnected systems." The Admiral nodded, her mind already formulating a plan. "Commander Sharma, prep our boarding teams. We're going to give the Vorax a taste of their own medicine." As the orders went out, the battle entered a new phase. Human boarding parties, protected by cutting-edge personal shield technology, launched themselves at the nearest Vorax ships. Their mission, to introduce the genetic disruptor into the heart of the alien vessels. The Vorax, caught off guard by such a brazen tactic, struggled to repel the boarders. They had never encountered a species willing to engage them in close combat like this. On the Vorax command ship, the Hive commander watched in disbelief as reports flooded in. These humans were not just resisting. They were actively taking the fight to the Vorax. For the first time in countless conquests, the Hive commander felt something akin to fear. These humans, it communicated to the swarm, they are not prey. They are predators. As the genetic disruptor began to take effect, Vorax ships started to behave erratically. Some turned on each other, others simply drifted powerless in space. The tide of battle was turning. Admiral Okoro, seeing the opportunity, gave the order. All ships, press the attack. Drive them out of our system. The human fleet surged forward, their weapons blazing. The Vorax, their hive mind in chaos and their ships malfunctioning, began a disorganized retreat. As the last of the Vorax ships fled the solar system, a cheer went up across the human fleet. They had done it. Humanity had faced its first interstellar threat and emerged victorious. But Admiral Okoro knew this was just the beginning. The Vorax would be back, and they would be prepared for humanity's tactics next time. The war was far from over. As the fleet regrouped and began the process of recovery and repair, Okoro addressed her forces. Today, we have shown the galaxy what humanity is capable of. We faced an enemy that has terrorized countless worlds, and we drove them back. Be proud, but do not be complacent. This was only the first battle in what will be a long war. She paused, looking out at the starfield beyond her view screen. But we have proven something today, to ourselves. As her words echoed across the fleet, the survivors of the battle felt a mix of exhaustion and exhilaration. They had faced the nightmare that had been haunting the galaxy, and they had won. Humanity had taken its first steps onto the galactic stage, and they had done so not as victims, but as warriors. The Vorax, retreating to lick their wounds, carried with them a new understanding and a new fear. The galaxy had changed. The hunters had become the hunted, and humanity was on the prowl. The turning point. 6 months had passed since humanity's first victory against the Vorax. The initial euphoria had given way to a grim determination as the true scale of the conflict became apparent. The Vorax, though pushed back, were far from defeated. They had regrouped, adapted, and were now waging a war of attrition across the galaxy. On Earth, the Terran Defense Initiative had expanded exponentially. The entire planet was now on a war footing, with industries retooled for the production of starships and weapons. The best minds from every field were working around the clock to develop new technologies to combat the ever-evolving Vorax threat. Admiral Ivan Okoro stood before a holographic display of the galaxy, her face etched with the strain of months of constant warfare. Around her, the war room of the HSS Resilience buzzed with activity. The Vorax have adapted to our initial tactics, she addressed her assembled officers. They've developed countermeasures for the Babel devices and have shown resistance to the first generation of our genetic disruptor. Commander Raj Sharma nodded grimly. They're learning from each encounter. Our hit-and-run tactics are becoming less effective as they adjust their swarm formations. Then we need to change the game entirely, a new voice chimed in. Dr. Ilara Patel had joined the War Council, her expertise in Vorax biology now crucial to military planning. What do you have in mind, Doctor? Okoro asked. Ilara's eyes gleamed with excitement. We've been studying the Vorax hive mind, and we think we found a way to use it against them. But it's going to require a bold strategy. As Ilara outlined her plan, expressions around the room ranged from disbelief to cautious hope. It was audacious, borderline insane, but it just might work. Okoro nodded, her decision made. Very well. We'll call it Operation Trojan. Begin preparations immediately. Across the galaxy, on a world recently liberated from Vorax control, a team of human scientists and engineers worked feverishly. Led by Chen Wei, they were putting the finishing touches on humanity's most ambitious project yet. Is it ready? General Donovan's holographic form asked, his cybernetic eye scanning the massive structure before him. Chen nodded, his face a mixture of pride and apprehension. As ready as it'll ever be, General. We're calling it the Nexus. It's part ship, part supercomputer, and part biological entity. The Nexus was unlike anything humanity had ever built. It incorporated reverse-engineered Vorax technology, cutting-edge human innovations, and biological components grown from modified Vorax genetic material. Its purpose: to interface directly with the Vorax hive mind. As preparations for Operation Trojan entered their final stages, the Vorax launched a massive offensive. Their target: the Arcturus system, home to one of humanity's most important shipyards. The battle for Arcturus was fierce. Human forces, though outnumbered, fought with desperate courage. But the Vorax pressed their advantage, their ships darkening the skies of Arcturus Prime. On the planet's surface, Maya Chen, now a squadron leader, rallied her pilots. "We need to buy more time for the evacuation," she shouted over the din of battle. "Form up on me. We're going to give these bugs something to remember us by." Maya's squadron took to the skies, their fighters weaving through the chaos of orbital combat. They targeted Vorax troop transports, preventing the aliens from landing in force and buying precious time for civilians to escape. In orbit, Admiral Okoro directed the defense from the Resilience. "Status of the Nexus," she demanded. "En route, Admiral," Sharma replied. "ETA 20 minutes. Okoro gritted her teeth. "We need to hold until then. All ships, concentrate fire on their command vessels. We need to disrupt their coordination." The space around Arcturus became a graveyard of ships, both human and Vorax. The defenders fought with everything they had, but the Vorax numbers seemed endless. Just as it seemed the line would break, a massive portal opened at the edge of the system. The Nexus had arrived. It was a sight to behold, a ship larger than anything humanity had ever constructed, pulsing with an otherworldly energy. As it moved into position, tendrils of energy began to reach out towards the Vorax fleet. "Nexus is powering up," Sharma reported, initiating interface with Vorax hive mind. Now, for a moment, everything seemed to pause. Then, chaos erupted among the Vorax ships. Some began firing on each other, others simply shut down, drifting lifelessly in space. On the Vorax command ship, the hive commander writhed in agony. The Nexus had tapped into the hive mind, flooding it with conflicting commands and false sensory data. For the first time, the Vorax experienced something they had inflicted on countless species, but never felt themselves: terror. "All ships, press the attack," Okoro commanded. "Don't let up." The human fleet surged forward, tearing into the disoriented Vorax forces. On the surface, Maya and her squadron took advantage of the confusion, systematically taking out the remaining Vorax ground forces. As the battle turned decisively in humanity's favor, the Vorax began a full retreat. But this time, the humans were ready. Jump inhibitors, hastily deployed throughout the system, prevented the Vorax from escaping. What had started as a desperate defense became a rout. By the time the last Vorax ship was destroyed or captured, the Arcturus system had become the site of humanity's greatest victory yet. In the aftermath, as rescue operations began and damage reports flooded in, Admiral Okoro addressed the fleet. "Today, we have achieved what many thought impossible. We have not just defeated a Vorax invasion force. We have shattered their belief in their own invincibility. The Nexus has given us the key to unraveling their hive mind, and with it, the means to end this war." She paused, her voice thick with emotion. "But let us not forget the cost. Every human who gave their life in this battle, every world that has suffered under Vorax occupation, they are the reason we fight. And we will continue to fight until the galaxy is free from this menace." As news of the victory spread across human space and to their allies in the Galactic Council, a new sense of hope blossomed. The Vorax, once thought unstoppable, had been dealt a crippling blow. But on distant worlds, in the deepest recesses of Vorax-controlled space, the hive mind was already adapting, evolving. The war was far from over, but for the first time, the Vorax knew fear. They had encountered a species that could not only resist them, but could strike at the very core of their being. Humanity had proven itself not just as defenders, but as a force to be reckoned with. The galaxy watched in awe and trepidation, wondering what this young, tenacious species would do next. The tide of war had turned, and humanity was riding the crest of the wave. Victory and aftermath. The war had raged for 3 long years. Across the galaxy, countless worlds lay in ruin, the scars of Vorax invasion etched deeply into their surfaces. But humanity and its allies had persevered, pushing back the swarm inch by hard-fought inch. Now, it all came down to this, the final battle for the Vorax homeworld. The combined fleet of humanity and its Galactic Council allies hung in space above Vora Prime, a planet that pulsed with unsettling bioluminescence. At the head of the armada, the HSS Resilience stood ready, its hull bearing the marks of 100 battles. Admiral Ivan Okoro, her hair now streaked with gray, addressed the assembled forces. "This is it. Everything we fought for, every sacrifice we've made, has led us to this moment. The Vorax ends here, today." Across the fleet, humans and aliens alike steeled themselves for the coming battle. Among them was Maya Chen, now commanding her own carrier group, and Dr. Ilara Patel, whose breakthroughs in Vorax biology had been crucial to the war effort. "Nexus is in position," reported Commander Sharma, his voice tense with anticipation, ready to begin the final interface. Okoro nodded grimly. "Initiate Operation Endgame." The Nexus, now evolved far beyond its original design, began to pulse with energy. Tendrils of data stretched out, prodding the defenses of Vora Prime. For a moment, all was silent. Then, chaos erupted. The surface of Vora Prime erupted in bioluminescent fury as the planet's defenses activated. Swarms of Vorax ships rose to meet the invaders, their formations more desperate and erratic than ever before. "They're fighting for survival now," Maya commented over the comms. "They know this is their last stand." The battle that followed was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Human ingenuity clashed with Vorax biological technology in a spectacle of destruction that lit up the space around Vora Prime. On the planet's surface, specially trained human strike teams, led by General Donovan himself, fought their way through living cities towards the central hive cluster. Each step was bought with blood and determination. "We're approaching the main nucleus," Donovan's gruff voice came over the comms. "But this place, it's like the whole planet is alive and fighting us." In orbit, the Nexus continued its assault on the Vorax hive mind, but the aliens fought back with everything they had, their collective consciousness lashing out in psychic fury. Dr. Patel, monitoring the Nexus from the Resilience, suddenly gasped, "Admiral, we have a problem. The Vorax are attempting to reverse the connection. They're trying to use the Nexus to invade our systems." For a heart-stopping moment, it seemed as if everything might unravel. But then, humanity's greatest strength came to the fore, its diversity of thought. "Flood the Nexus with data," Okoro commanded. "Not just military tactics, everything. Art, music, literature, philosophy. Give them the full depth of human experience." Across the fleet, and from transmitters on Earth itself, a deluge of human culture and knowledge poured into the Nexus. The collected works of Shakespeare mingled with quantum physics equations. Symphony orchestras played alongside heavy metal bands. The entire breadth of human existence, its triumphs and failures, its loves and hates, its dreams and fears, all of it cascaded into the Vorax hive mind. On Vora Prime, the effect was immediate and devastating. The Vorax, used to the singular purpose of their hive mind, were overwhelmed by the cacophony of human individuality. "It's working," Ilara shouted. "Their synaptic connections are overloading. They can't process the complexity. In space, Vorax ships began to drift aimlessly, their crews lost in a sea of human experiences. On the planet's surface, the living defenses wilted and died. General Donovan and his team, seizing the moment, fought their way to the heart of the Hive cluster. There, they planted the final weapon, a device that would sever the connections of the hive mind permanently. "Packages delivered," Donovan reported. "Get us out of here." As evacuation ships raced to retrieve the ground teams, Admiral Okoro gave the final order. "All ships, commence bombardment. End this, once and for all." The combined firepower of the Allied fleet rained down on Vora Prime. The planet's surface boiled and cracked, its biological cities turned to ash. And at the heart of it all, the device activated, sending out a pulse that shattered the Vorax hive mind into billions of individual consciousnesses. In an instant, the war that had threatened to consume the galaxy was over. The Vorax, robbed of their unity and purpose, surrendered en masse. As the dust settled and the enormity of the victory sank in, Admiral Okoro addressed not just her fleet, but the entire galaxy. "Today marks the end of the Vorax threat, but it also marks a new beginning. We have proven that diversity is not a weakness, but our greatest strength. That individuality, creativity, and the indomitable human spirit can overcome any obstacle." She paused, her voice thick with emotion. "But let us not forget the cost. Every life lost, every world scarred, they are the price of our freedom. As we move forward, let us honor their memory by building a galaxy of peace, understanding, and cooperation." In the years that followed, humanity's role in the galaxy transformed. Once seen as newcomers, they were now viewed with a mixture of awe and trepidation. Their ships ranged far and wide, not as conquerors, but as explorers and peacekeepers. The remnants of the Vorax, their hive mind shattered, were not exterminated but rehabilitated. Under human guidance, they began the long process of developing individual identities and integrating into galactic society. On Earth, monuments were erected to honor the fallen. The Nexus, its purpose fulfilled, was transformed into a center of learning and cultural exchange, where species from across the galaxy could come to study and understand one another. Maya Chen, her days as a fighter pilot behind her, now captained a ship of exploration, seeking out new worlds and new civilizations. Dr. Ilara Patel's work in xenobiology had revolutionized medicine across the galaxy, saving countless lives. And Admiral Okoro, now retired, stood on the observation deck of Arcturus Station, watching ships from 100 worlds come and go. A small smile played on her lips as she remembered the words she had spoken at the start of the war. "We are humanity, and we will fight to our last breath to defend our home and our galaxy." They had fought, they had bled, and they had emerged victorious. But more than that, they had proven to the galaxy and to themselves that humanity's greatest strength lay not in its weapons or technology, but in the indomitable spirit of its people. As the stars twinkled in the vast expanse of space, humanity looked to the future with hope and determination. They had faced their greatest challenge and emerged stronger for it. Whatever the galaxy might throw at them next, they would be ready. For they were humanity, adaptable, resilient, and unbreakable. And their story was far from over.